I'm just making a small presentation and sharing my ideas about how to meet demand using social intervention. Definitely, all of us talk about the technical intervention, but I am talking about the social intervention and how we can meet the demand curves by the social intervention. So first and foremost, one of my favorite slide, what exactly is the power distribution business? So this is how I define the power distribution business. This is a business where we have to meet each consumer safe and quality power demand with efficiency and reliability. Now, these each words are very important. First word is each, not all. Now, the difference between each and all is when we say power is available, then it is power for all. But when we ensure that it reaches to the consumer, then we say the each word. Suppose in a flight there are 100 people, and if we have 100 food packet, then I can say I have food for all. But one of the person like me is a Jenny person and he does not eat onion, then even if the food is for all, but it's not for each and everyone, and I will not get the food. So it is very important to ensure that it reaches to the consumer, not just by generation. Generation alone does not guarantee that power will be there. In India, we have food surplus, but still there are a lot of people who are without food and they sleep without food. So the word each is very critical in distribution. Second thing is about the safe power. Now, safe for the user and safe for the environment. Now, as a country, we have a policy, we will have more and more renewable energy. So definitely safe from the environment point of view is very, very critical. Quality, of course, all of us knows. And to meet the demand with efficiency and reliability. Now, when we say efficiency means cost of supply and the services, and reliability is outages, reliability indices, and other things. So the key word is the demand. Now, best part is how to define the demand. Now, this word demand has nowadays 3 parameters. Whatever is the quantity, whatever is the time, and wherever they want. So demand now, as per consumer, is whatever quantity I want, I should get. Wherever I want, he has electric vehicle, wherever he want to charge, he should get the power. And whatever time he want, he should get the power. The best part of this entire game is even consumer does not know what time he want, when he want, and what quantity he want. So this is a very interesting business where the consumer does not know what he wants, where he wants, when he wants, but the distribution company is supposed to know what he wants, where he wants, so that they can arrange the exact quantity of generation. Because any imbalance between the two will change the scenario. Now, of late, there are a lot of transformations are taking place in the power distribution sector. And the major transformation is it is no longer centralized generation. Earlier, we used to have another. So far, we have to have centralized generation, which goes to through the transmission company, distribution, and finally consumer. Now we are talking about distributed generation. We are talking about interconnections. We are talking about peer-to-peer power distribution. We are talking about batteries and other things. So the network is overall becoming very, very complex. It is becoming very complex. And because of such things, a lot of changes have taken place. Now it is no longer centralized, you have decentralized. The consumer are becoming self-sufficient, not for 100% time, but most of the time. So for the remaining time, they are dependent on the grid. There are a lot of interactions are taking place between consumer to consumer, peer to peer, multi-traders are there, blockchain is there, community energy is there, virtual metering is there. And so many things are taking place and which are raising a lot of new issues. What are the issues? The issues are unpredictability. Generation itself is unpredictable. On the other hand, the load have become uncertain. We don't know when he will charge his EV, where he will charge his EV. Weathers are also becoming unpredictable. So on one hand, the unpredictability, uncertainties are going up. And then to match these uncertainty, generation also has uncertainty, load has also uncertainty. There is an issue of predictability. Now to match the two, the generation and the load is a big issue and which can result to the power crisis, underutilization of assets, safety issues, power quality issues, and failure. So these are the challenges what is happening and which is expected to become more and more severe in the coming days. And in India also, we have seen, of course, we talk about the solar powered duck curve, but there are two news which I would like to share. First news was in November, 25% of the solar power from Rajasthan could not be transmitted. And second was in December, people were talking about tender of 100 gigawatt thermal power. Now, on the one hand, we are going towards solar, but we are not able to lift the power. On the other hand, we wanted to have no more, or rather close the thermal plant, but we are going for the tender for the thermal plants. Both the things are away from the national mission and other things. These are the facts. So where we are going wrong? What is the solution for such things? Normally, people say the solution is you have the batteries. Is that the only solution, or there are other solutions? So the big question is, do we still need additional thermal power capacity in spite of increasing solar generation? It's a fact. The capacity, overall capacity of the countries are going up. But for daytime, you have solar, for nighttime, you need thermal. So practically, we are investing double now. Then will the government policy of virtual metering, peer-to-peer, blockchain will help to solve this? No. If you sell, I am rather than selling to the distribution company, I am selling to other consumer. It will not change the curve. The curve, the demand curve, the utilization curve will remain same. Whether you have blockchain, virtual metering, nothing will change. We have to put an effort so that we can match the two and start having thermal generation or better utilization of this. Is the solution lies only in the battery? My answer is yes, of course, battery is a solution. Maybe we should look into how to engage the consumer, have some social intervention. So this is the background of the presentation, and let's see how it is. This is typical Delhi curve. So we can see this is a typical Delhi curve, and we can see there are two peaks, the peak in the afternoon and the peak in the night. So always the peak in the night is higher than the peak in the afternoon in Delhi. Night peaks typically come in the month of second half of June or second fortnight of June or first fortnight of July. And typically the peak is around 10 o'clock to 11:30 in the night. In between the peak will come. And the second peak is in the afternoon. Now, I would like to draw your attention to a very interesting phenomena, which I call it India Gate loan impact on the curve. You might find this name very funny, but I will call it as the India Gate loan impact on this curve. So what is this impact? Today, every afternoon or every evening, late evening, especially in summertime when we used to have the peak, almost 1.5 lakh to 2 lakh people, they visit India Gate every day. And they enjoy the summer evening in the lawns, have ice cream, enjoy with children, go around the park and so on. Some of them go for boating also. Some of the children enjoy bathing in the fountain. Now, this 1.5 to 2 lakh people means 30 to 40,000 AC are off. Same time, the TVs are off. Maybe 1 lakh lights are off. Now, one India Gate helped we distribution company slightly in reducing the peak demand and that late evening where we used to have very high demand. Now the question is, why can't we have such 20 India Gate in Delhi? This is what I meant by social intervention. Of course, there is no need to build 20 India Gate, but we have more than 20 big gardens in Delhi. Japanese garden, Buddha garden, Millennium garden. Today after 8 o'clock, nobody can enter into that garden. Forget human being, even ghost does not enter into that garden. Why can't we have food courts? Why can't we have giant screens? Why can't we have playing court? Why can't we have fountains? And let each garden, there are more than 1 lakh people or 50,000 people. It will enhance the economy and definitely reduce the peak load a lot. This is where I meant by having social intervention. Think about other things. What about nightlife? Why we close pub at 9 o'clock? What about 24 hours mall? What about car repairing in the night? What about night markets for the food and other things? There will be a positive impact on economy, positive impact on employment, and definitely a big reduction in the night peak demand, where otherwise we are looking for thermal energy. So these are the social intervention which I reveal, and there are many more. Social interventions can be divided into two categories. One is which is based on the government policy, and the second is by engaging the consumer. Now, the government policy directives, policy initiatives are one which can affect the consumer load usage pattern. The one example I gave. Suppose 24-hour market, 24-hour malls. You allow the pubs and the restaurants to remain open till late night. You have food courts in the gardens where there are public. You have giant screens. We have now, shortly within a month, we will have World Cup T20. Definitely, if I'm sure India will play the final. But you remember the day India will play the final, what will be the demand of electricity? Everybody will watching the TV. Now imagine you have a giant screen where 20,000 people are watching the TV. That means at least 10,000 TV are off. That means during the break, otherwise 5,000 people will switch on their microwave or their oven or their electric kettle and other thing. No such things, because they are at the in the market or at a mall or at a giant screen and other thing. So we can definitely save such peaks and we can avoid this thing. So these are the government initiatives. Interventions can be in various forms. Even directive like non-essential load during the peak can be effective too. For example, I live in a multi-story building. Why should I pump water during the peak hours? Why not? It should be banned. Why a EV charge should only during the peak hours? Why it should not be banned? Why a lady use electric iron, washing machine during those hours? It can be planned. You can use them for remaining 21 hours are with you. If you have emergency, pay high charge. But by policies, certainly we can have such things, which is a social intervention, because we are intervening the social life of the individual, and we can control our curves. It's not that we are causing any uncomfort or something like that or discomfort to the people, but we are ensuring that the earth remain green and we are able to use better electricity, because we are just shifting the activity from peak hours to the non-peak hours, from the time when we have less generation to the more generation time. By engaging the consumer means you have demand response. You can have aggregation of or aggregator for the consumer battery, and also controlling the EV charging rate. That means during the peak, if you charge EV, it should not be fast charge. It will be limited charging, only for emergency. But rest of the time, you can have even fast charging. So demand curve is due to consumer switching the load. The demand curve is because of the behavior of the consumer. By social intervention, we can slightly change their behavior. Now, it can be the social intervention can be in forms of incentive, it can be in forms of directive, it can be forms of religious appeal, it can be in form of fashion, which attracts the consumer, and so that they engage or they go for this thing. Even demand response is a very powerful tool to control the demand, to control the peak. Now, few social intervention examples. I have already talked about giant screen. What about electric good trains? Like we have a peak at 3 o'clock. What will, if assume 3 o'clock is the peak and 3 o'clock is the lunch time in the industry? That means most of the machine will be off. Can we shift our lunch break from 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock? Okay, it might look odd, but what about if the west of the India has a time zone which is 1 hour away? Automatically means it is 3 o'clock, not 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock is practically it is 3 o'clock, or vice versa. East India side it is 3 o'clock. So we can always look into such things. Water pumping or water supply. Most of the places the water supply is for few hours in a day. Now, what about if we ensured no water supply during the peak power demand? Because whenever there is a water supply anytime whenever there is a water supply means your pumping load is on, and lot of people they put booster motor on the pipeline, those are on, and lot of people they switch on their motors to pump the water to the overhead. All these things are on. Now, if there is no water in those hours, maybe 21 hours, you can have water supply. For 3 hours, there is no water supply. That means you are reducing a big load by such thing. Law about the non-critical appliances. It has to be switched off. Energy can be measured. Law about the energy EV charging. Law about the motor to pump water in the overhead tanks, electric iron and other thing. So our big role can also be played by the city planners. Like in Delhi, we have CGO complex. CGO complex means, there are a lot of activities in daytime. Maybe the network is under stress in the daytime. In the nighttime, absolutely no load. Whereas in the residential area, in the daytime, there is hardly any load because people have gone out, children have gone to the school and so on. In the nighttime, there is a big load. Now, why can't we have mixed load? So social intervention, city planning, everything has an impact on the human being. And if the human being is impacted, means his behavior will change. And if his behavior will change, means his demand curve will change. Now we have to look for the intervention by which we can change the this thing. Now, next idea is, or next concept is about the demand response. So can we use demand response as a tool? A lot of people say, now we have smart meter, we can talk about the demand response and other thing. So there is a need to analyze, can we use demand response? Now, see, there are two equations. Before that, I have shared some data. The average power rate, suppose for a utility is 6 rupees, selling rate is 8 rupees 60 paisa. CNI consumer are paying higher, maybe 12 rupees, 13 rupees. Plus, if there is a TOD, they will pay the penalty. And in Delhi, the consumer who are consuming less than 200, they pay 3 rupees 50 paisa. And during the peak, the exchange rate is 10 rupees, 12 rupees, depending upon the peak ceiling, which is done by the government. Now, if I involve a CNI consumer who is, if I ask not to consume power, to reduce his consumption or to switch off the load, means there is no sale. That means I lose 13 rupees because I'm not selling unit. I have to pay some invention tax, say 4 rupees. Total, I am paying to him 17 rupees. Whereas even if I buy power from exchange at the peak rate and plus 10% losses in the path and other thing, still I can make money. So does it make any sense to ask a CNI consumer to reduce his power? No, it makes no sense. But on the other hand, the poor person who is consuming power less than 200 units, his loss of sale is 3 rupee 50 paisa. Even if I give him 4 rupees incentive, it is 7 rupee 50 paisa. But I am buying power at 10 rupees. I can still make money. So a lot of people say demand response is for high-end consumer, for rich people. No, no, it is for poor people. We have to change our philosophy. We have to understand the society. We have to go for the social engineering. Similarly, EV station, there is a special tariff by the government, 4 rupees, 5 rupees, which is lower than the buying rate. Now, we should pursue this consumer, give them the incentive so that they don't consume at the peak when the utility has to buy at the price much higher than the average rate. And please remember, at the peak, the rates are high and also your technical losses are high. If the technical loss average is 8%, at the peak it is 15% because I square. So one has to be very careful how we can reduce the demand at the peak, even if we have to spend money, and where it make more sense that we have to look into it. So there are few examples. It's not easy to implement. It required a will, it required a regulatory intervention and other. Lot of states, they give free power. Can we make a rule? You will get free power, but not during the peak. Rest of the time you have free power. So 21 hours you have free powers, but for 3 hours you have to pay. Definitely people will shift their non-essential activity during the free hours. High tariff during the peaks. MD violation. If you are in the peak, you have to pay penalty. Rest of the time, don't worry about your MD. Rather, it is good if the person consume more power when you have surplus power. So just have a violation charges only when there is a MD. The tariff policy to cut non-essential load. Now you have smart meter, you can always cut your non-essential. TOD is a very good thing. What about battery aggregator? Now that's something very interesting. In India, a lot of houses has inverter and battery. They use inverter and battery only, please listen, only outage, not when during the peak. Now, can we have a system, those who has a battery that are integrated with the network, and whenever there is a peak, those battery will be discharged. Those are country assets. Those are our citizens' assets. Why can't we discharge them? Why to keep the battery energy during the peak? Discharge them and charge them again during the non-peak or when the power is surplus. So rather than buying new batteries, why can't we use consumer batteries which are already available in this thing? If we total up the total battery which are available at household, it is more than the what BESS capacity we are looking for, the best capacity what we are projecting. More than that, the batteries are already available at household. Use Uber model, use Ola model, integrate them, aggregate them, bring it at one point, use them as a battery. Of course, the regulator has to have innovative tariffs, has to think innovatively, has to think about the social intervention. This cannot be possible just by the normal rules and other things. So demand response policy, incentive to the consumer. We should have a special incentive for ADR. ADR means automatic demand response. So in case there is a crisis, in case there is a peak, the utility can take a control over your non-essential loads, can take a control over your batteries, can even in future take a control of your electrical vehicles battery and so on. These are the interventions which are required if we want to ensure a proper the existing generation without adding thermal or fuel-based generation and can meet the demand so that there is no outage, no inconvenience to everybody, and a better utilization of the resources. So this is all from my side. Thank you.